Today is another video for government accounting and accounting for non-profit organizations. Today, we are going to discuss Chapter 3, the government accounting process. And the learning objective for this chapter is for us to record the basic transaction of government entity and to basically know the government accounting cycle. But what is government accounting process? This is a process in which is similar to that of a business entity. Which means, ang sabi diba natin sa accounting is it compasses, okay, or comprises the activities of analyzing, recording, classifying, summarizing, and communicating transactions involving the receipt and disposition of government funds and property and interpreting the result thereof. It is similar to business entity, except that it incorporates budgetary controls such as recording budget registries and preparing periodic budget accountability reports. Same sa commercial, pinag-uusapan lang dito sa government accounting process, we are accounting for government funds and property, including the receipt and its disposition. So, here are the book of accounts and registries used in government. So, sa journal, we have general journal, cash receipts journal, cash disbursements journal, check disbursements journal. Ito, same yan sa private. Kung may mga private entities or commercial entities na hindi gumagamit ng ibang journal dyan, but it is basically the same. We have also ledgers, the general ledger and the subsidiary ledgers that is supporting the general ledger. And also, a unique control instrument of the government is what we call the registries. Okay, registries, we have different registries that are used for budgetary control. First is the registries of revenue and other receipts, or the RROR. Next, we have registry of appropriation and allotment, so we can call it RAPAL. Next is registries of allotments, obligation, and disbursement, or RAOD. And last is registries of budget, utilization, and disbursement, or RBUD. Technically, only the journals and ledgers are considered accounting records. Tama? So, yan yung ang nag-maintain po ng journal and ledgers is the accounting unit, while the registries are budget records. Hindi siya accounting record. So, sino nagme-maintain nito sa government? We have the budget decision. So, remember, nung last time, we have discussed na ang government natin ngayon is gumagamit na ng 7 fund clusters or the cluster fund clustering. So, we have 7 and separate accounting records and budget registries are maintained for each chapter. For each cluster. So, meron tayo yung 7 fund clusters. Lahat ng yan may kanya-kanyang journal, ledger, and registries. So, let me discuss para saan ba yung mga registries. Si RROR or Registries of Revenue and Other Receipts, this is used to monitor the revenue and other receipts estimated or budgeted, and then collected and remitted or deposited sa national government or the BTR. So technically, it is used for revenue and other receipts. So makikita mo dun yung magkano yung na-estimate based on our budget, magkano yung estimated collection, magkano yung actual collection, and then magkano yung na-remit natin kay National Treasury. Yan. And then next we have RAPAL. Ito yung tip ko para sa mga registries. Yung registries ginagamit lang kung ano yung name niya. For example, RAPAL. Sabi niya registry ng appropriation and allotment, meaning you will only use this, okay? You will only use this registry when, okay, when there is appropriation and there is allotment movement. So, saan ba ginagamit natin yung RAPAL? It is to monitor appropriations and allotments charged thereto. Next, we have RAOD, or Registries of Allotment, Obligation, and Disbursement. So, ano lang ano lang yung mga transaction na i-update mo dito sa RAOD? We have allotment, obligation, and disbursement. Okay? It shall show the allotment received for the year, obligations incurred against the corresponding allotment, and the actual disbursement. Ang gusto makita kasi dito sa RAOD is that the obligation should not exceed the allotment received, and the disbursement should not exceed the obligation incurred. Yan. So, yan yung RAOD. Next is ARBUD. ARBUD, ang pinagkaiba niya kay RAOD, it's almost the same. It's just that, si ARBUD kasi is ginagamit to record the approved special budget and the corresponding utilization of disbursement that is charged to retained earnings. Yung isa kasi, allotment yung pinag-chargean or pinanggagalingan. They are the RAOD. Allotment ang pinanggalingan ng budget. While for ARBUD, it is charged to retained income or retained earnings. Itong last two, we have RAOD and ARBUD. These are registries na may kanya-kanyang registries sa kada object of expenditure. So, ilan ba yung object of expenditure natin? We have 4. We have PS, which pertains to personal services to all types of employee benefits. Next is MOOE, or maintenance and other operating expense, that pertains to various operating expense other than employee benefits and financial expenses. Next is financial expense, pertains to financial cost. And last is capital outlays, or CO, pertains to capitalizable expenditure. Magbibigay ako ng example. Sa PS, pwedeng salaries and wages. Pwedeng personal economic relief allowance, representation allowance, and transportation allowance. Papasok din dito yung clothing and uniform allowance. Sa MOOE naman, ang example niya, we have traveling expense, office supplies expense, textbook and instructional material expense. Pwede rin pumasok dito yung tinatawag natin sa government na semi-expendable expenses. Also, utility expense kasi nga maintenance. Next, we have financial expenses. Ang example niyan, interest expense, bank charges, and other financial charges. Sa capital outlays naman, hindi ibig sabihin expense ito ha. Ito, capitalizable yung disbursement. Capitalizable ng government. Anong example ng mga disbursement na kinakapitalize ng government? We have purchase of land, infrastructure assets like bridges, schools, bridges pala, yung tollways, yan, mga ganyan. Mga infrastructure assets yan, mga systems or seaport system, yan, mga ganyan, infrastructure assets yan. Another example of capital outlay is buildings and other structures. So yun, papasok yun sa capital outlay. So ibig sabihin, we have 4 object of expenditure. So ano nga sabi natin, si RAOD, may kanya-kanyang RAOD for each object of expenditure. So we have RAOD PS, RAOD MOOE, RAOD FE, and RAOD capital outlay or CO. Also, si ARBUD. So meron tayong ARBUD PS, ARBUD MOOE, ARBUD FE, and ARBUD CO. So yan yung object of expenditure. Another another form na ginagamit ng government in terms of disbursement is what we call obligation request status. Hindi pala in terms of disbursement, monitoring. Okay, another form in monitoring disbursement and budget of the government is what we call ORS, or obligation request status. Incurrence of obligation shall be made through the issuance of ORS. Ano ibig sabihin? Each obligation, isang ORS. Example, meron kang 4 na kontrata. Magkakaibang kontrata 4. Ngayon, sa 4 na kontratang yon, yung 3 is napunta ka kay contractor A. Yung isa, si supplier B. Ilan ang gagawin nating ORS? 2 ba? Kasi 2, contractor A, supplier B. Or 4? The answer is 4. So, each obligation, isang ORS. It is prepared by the requesting or originating office. Kung ano yung department na nangailangan nung disbursement na yon. Next, it is also the head of the requesting or originating office that will certify as to the necessity and legality of charges to budget under his or her supervision and validity. Kaya nga po, kung sakasakali na merong illegalities or irregularity dun sa disbursement, kasama po yung head of the requesting agency sa kini-question. Kasi isa siya sa nagsacertify as to the necessity and legality and also validity of the transaction. So, yun yung mga forms na ginagamit natin. So, meron pang mga ibang forms na ginagamit sa government. Actually, marami. Pero, basically, ito yung medyo importante dito sa chapter natin. So, let's go now to the basic transactions of the government. So, first is the receipt of appropriation. Yan. Receipt of appropriation. Ano daw ang gagawin natin pag naka-receive tayo ng appropriation? Ma'am, kailan po ba nakaka-receive ng appropriation? Yan po pag na-enact na yung GAA. Yung doon sa last chapter natin na diniscuss, enactment of GAA. So, meron ng appropriation. So, kunyari, entity A receives its GAA consisting of the following: PS, 100,000, MOE, 60,000, capital outlay, 200,000, total appropriation, 360,000. Ang tanong, ano yung journal entry at anong mga registries ang i-update natin? Remember, appropriation. So, ano ba dun sa mga nabanggit ko yung may word na appropriation? So, we have RAPAL, Registries of Appropriation and Allotment. So, ang tawag dito, ang i-update mo na registry or record is the RAPAL. May journal entry? Wala. O, next. We have allotment. Allotment, ito dapat hindi mag-exceed sa appropriation dun sa in-enact na budget para sa yung agency. Yung ibibigay sa iyo ni DBM na allotment should not exceed the appropriation. In this example, entity A receives allotment from DBM consisting of the following. So, PS natin 90, MOE 40, FE wala, capital outlay 170. So, let's check kanina. Meron bang nag-exceed sa appropriation? Yung allotment, 160, 200. We have 90, 40, 170. Wala. Total allotment received, 300,000. Ano-ano daw yung mga registries and records na i-update natin? And also, is there any journal entry? The answer, none. Okay? Registries, syempre, allotment, so RAPAL. Next, ano pa ba yung registry na may word na allotment? So, we have RAOD. So, sabi nga natin, kanya-kanyang RAOD for each object of expenditure. So, i-update natin RAOD PS, RAOD MOE, RAOD CO. So, yan yung alam. Next, incurrence of obligation. Ito nagiging problema natin sa government. Or muna mga estudyante. Or nako-confuse yung mga estudyante dito sa incurrence of obligation. In government, incurrence of obligation does not, equal to liability. Yan, i-discuss ko mamaya. Pero ito muna yung example. Entity A, to continue the story, Entity A enters into the following contract. A contract, so letter A, sa PS, employee contracts or job order amounting to 70,000, purchase contract for office supplies 25,000, and for capital outlay, contract of office equipment worth 160,000. So, meron ka ng obligation. Saang registry yung may word na obligation? We have RAOD. Yan, correct. We have RAOD. May obligation ka na. So, RAOD PS, magkano i-update mo doon? 70,000. RAOD MOE, merong 25,000 na nagamit. And then, RAOD CO, we have 160,000. And also, we are to use or to make 3 ORS or obligation request status for each contract. Yan. So, meron bang journal entry? Wala pa. Kasi wala pang accounting events or financial events na makakapag-record or na maire-record natin sa ating book of accounts. Note, in government entity, obligation means an act of a duly authorized official. Kung sino man yun, siyempre yung head of the originating unit, which binds the government to the immediate or eventual payment of sum of money. Nagbabind pa lang, meaning meron palang agreement, kontrata. That is what we call incurrence of obligation in the government. While in business entity, it is also term for liability. Kasi sa atin, sa commercial, yung nakasanayan nyo, pag sinabi natin meron ng obligation, nagre-record na agad tayo, payable. Dito, wala pa. Yan, meron palang kontrata. How about naman, kunyari, ma'am, may nagkamali po yung na-update ko doon sa RAOD at saka sa ORS. You are to use the what we call NORSA or the Notice of Obligation Request and Status Adjustment. It is also a form to adjust. Okay? It is used in adjusting obligations recorded in RAOD and ORS. The adjustment shall be reflected through a positive entry para sa addition, para kung magdadagdag ka addendum, or a negative entry for reduction. So, ang gagamitin mo to adjust NORSA. Yan. So, we have the registries, ORS, NORSA. Next, meron ka ng obligation. Tanong, paano pag meron na tayong nag-incur na, okay, or nag-deliver na ng services? Meron na ba tayong pambayad or meron na bang pera ang gobyerno? From this point in time, up to this point in time, meron na ba tayong ni-record na na-receive na pera ang government? Wala pa. Puro budget. Appropriation, allotment, incurrence of obligation. So, kailan po tayo magkakaroon ng pera? That would be when the company received NCA or Notice of Cash Allocation. So, Entity A receives NCA from DBM amounting to 200,000 net of tax. So, naka-receive daw siya ng NCA. So, anong entry? Debit cash. Ito yung entry na wag mong kakalimutan ever. Wag mong kakalimutan dito sa government accounting kasi minsan yan lang yung question sa board exam. Receipt of NCA. What is the entry? Debit Cash MDS regular or modified disbursement system. Cash MDS regular credit subsidy from national government 200,000. Anong registry ang i-update natin? RANCA. Ma'am, ano po yung RANCA? Another registry? Yes. So, RANCA. Ano ba yung RANCA? It is Registry of Allotment and NCA and Notice of Cash Out. It is used to determine the amount of allotment not covered by NCA and to monitor available balance of NCA. Ito yung na-discuss natin last time na disbursement authority. Yan. Mga disbursement authority to. Another registry, kung naka-receive ka naman ng NTA or Notice of Transfer of Allocation, ang i-update is Registry of Allotment and Notice of Transfer of Allocation. It is used to determine the amount of allotments not covered by NTA and to monitor the available balance of NTA, hindi NRA yan. NCA specify the maximum amount of withdrawal that an entity can make from government bank for a period indicated, and collecting officers shall not issue an official receipt for the receipt of NCA. So, yan yung mga disbursement authority natin. So, meron pa yun. Na-discuss natin last time. We have CDC, MTA, NCAA, tsaka NCA. So, meron na tayong pera. This is the only, or this is the since meron na tayong pera, pwede na tayong mag-disburse. So, we have disbursement. In this example is employee have rendered services and now entitled to compensation. So, nagtrabaho na sila, so magsasweldo na tayo. It is how to set up payable to officers and employee upon approval of payroll. So, kunyari ito yung naging payroll. Salaries and wages 35, pera 5, total gross compensation 40, and then yung mga what deductions natin, tax 10, GSIS 2, Pag-ibig 2, PhilHealth 1, total deduction 50. So net na ibibigay sa empleyado 25,000. So ano yung entry natin dito at saka anong registry? Debit, salaries and wages regular, credit, debit pera. So wag mong kakalimutan itong mga entries na to ha. I don't like to mix up the account titles. Kung ano yung account titles na yan, kasi very specific sa government. Meron tayong revised chart of accounts or the chart of accounts. So, kung ano yung nakalagay dyan na account title, yun po ang ginagamit sa government. Do not create your own account title. So, salaries and wages regular, 35,000. Pera, 5,000. Credit due to BIR, 10. Due to GSIS, 2. Due to Pag-ibig, 2. Due to PhilHealth, 1. Due to officers and employees, 25. So, ano yung registries na i-update natin? Yung ORS, kasi magbabayad na tayo, and then, RAOD. To continue yung disbursement, so, ang ano natin, magagrant na tayo ng cash advance para dun sa payroll. So, update natin si ORS, and then the entry, advances for payroll, yung 25,000 na net, and then credit cash NDS regular. So, mag-i-issue na tayo ng cheque, 25,000. Debit, advances for payroll, credit, cash, NDS regular. Remember that advances for payroll is a receivable account and subject for liquidation. Cash advance kasi to. So, nung niliquidate mo na yung payroll funds, na ibigay mo na, magbibigay ka na lang yung assigned din sa payroll na ipamigay niya na yung pera, ngayon magsasubmit na siya ng liquidation report kasama nung mga acknowledgement receipt, mga pirma, and then DTR. So, nandyan yan sa liquidation. So, anong gagawin natin? Ano yung entry at saka registry niya update? Wala nang registry. Pero meron journal entry since ililiquidate natin. So, wala na tayong due to officers and employee. Due to officers and employee is a liability account. Yan yung nandun kanina sa pag-set up na credit due to officers and employee, 25,000. Credit advances for payroll. So, to continue, entity A remits the 15,000 withheld to other government agency. Diba doon sa salaries mo, 50,000 yung gross, 25 lang yung binayaran mo sa empleyado. So, meron kang 15,000 na winithheld, na ibabayad ni government agency sa mga iba pang government agency. So, ano yung entry doon? Debit due to GSIS, 2,000. Due to Pag-ibig, 2,000. Due to PhilHealth, 1,000. Cash MDS regular, 5,000. Ma'am, bakit ganon? 5,000 lang po yung binayad natin or niremit natin na withholdings. 15,000 po yung total withholding ng government agency na yan or ni entity A. Ano po yung 10,000? Remember, that is due to BIR. And also, remember na yung NCA na na-receive mo, yung NCA na na-receive mo, tingnan natin yun ha, yung NCA na na-receive mo is net of tax. Since net of tax yan, wala kang perang pangbayad sa tax. So, ma'am, paano makiklear yung pangalan ng government agency sa BIR? Winitheld na po namin yan sa sweldo ng empleyado. Ano ang gagamitin ni government agency pambayad ng tax? We have what we call Tax Remittance Advice or TRA. In the books of the agencies, it is a constructive remittance of taxes withheld to BIR or custom duties taxes withheld to BOC or Bureau of Custom. So, ang TRA, ginagamit po yan kay BIR at saka Bureau of Custom in the constructive receipt of NCA for those taxes and custom duties. Ito yung as if naka-receive ka ng NCA pero pambayad lang siya ng tax remittance advice. In the books of BIR or BOC, it is a constructive receipt of tax revenue. Pag nagbayad si government agency ng tax TRA sa'yo, ng TRA sa'yo, BIR, yun is income tax mo. Sa book naman ni BTR, it is a constructive receipt of taxes and custom duties remitted. Ito rin kasi yung i-remit ni BIR sa kanya. Di ba nga, i-collect ni BIR, i-remit kay BTR. Agency will pay BIR and then remit to BTR. So, ano yung exact, entry na ginagamit natin for TRA? Ito yung remittance of withholding taxes if your NCA is net of tax. Unang entry natin, cash TRA. Debit cash TRA, credit subsidy from national government. 10,000, 10,000. Ano yung ni-record mo dito? It is to recognize the constructive receipt of NCA for TRA. Ito yung naka-receive ka ng TRA galing kay DBM. So, debit cash TRA, credit subsidy from national government. Parang kanina lang, nung naka-receive ka ng NCA, ano yung debit mo? Cash NCA, cash MDS regular. In this case, cash TRA siya. Is it an actual cash? Hindi. Parang papel lang yan na i-forward mo kay BIR. Ngayon, since magbabayad ka na ng BIR mo or ng taxes or ng withholding taxes mo, Ano yung entry to record a constructive remittance? Debit due to BIR, the liability, 10,000. Credit, yung pinambayad mo, cash TRA, 10,000. So it is to recognize the constructive remittance of taxes withheld to BIR through TRA. So, ganyan yun. Ito naman, yung sa books ni BIR at ni BTR. Ano yung itsura? Kay book sa BIR, kapag nagbayad ka through TRA kay BIR, si agency nagbayad kay BIR, debit ka, syempre, na-receive mo. TRA, credit, income tax. Revenue account to. Yan. Revenue account yan. 10,000, 10,000 to recognize constructive receipt of taxes remitted by NGAs through TRA. Sa book naman ni BTR, since ito yung na-receive ni BIR, i-remit niya yan kay BTR. Anong entry? Debit subsidy to NGA, credit cash TRA. So, yan po yung sa book of BTR. So, yan yung para sa disbursement. So, marami pong klase ng disbursements. I-discuss natin yan sa chapter ng disbursement. But this is a sample of transactions or recordings na ginagamit ng government in terms of disbursement. Another, okay, is in terms of collection. This topic, meron din yung sariling chapter. Yan yung chapter na sunod, chapter 4. But for the sake of buuin natin yung government accounting cycle. Collection. In PD 1445, it requires that all collection, lahat must be remitted to National Treasury. Ano po ang ibig sabihin nun? It means that yung government agency, lahat ng nare-receive mo, payment of receivables, collections from members, it must be remitted to National Treasury. Except if there is a law na sinasabi na yung pera mo sa'yo na agency. Yung collection mo pondo mo. But generally, in PD 1445, it requires that all collection. So, general rule, when you collect, you remit. O, yan yung isa natin When you collect, you remit. Kanino? National Treasury. Hindi po, kasi akala ng iba is that ay marami yung collection ni BIR, kaya marami siyang pera. Hindi po. Yung collection niya, nire-remit niya po yun sa Treasury. So ano po yung ginagamit, ma'am, ni BIR sa operations niya? Galing po sa GAA. Galing kay NCA. Yung kanina mong ginamit sa pag-disburse, hindi naman yung galing sa collection Galing saan yun? Subsidy. Yeah. And then, collection and remittance are recorded in the what we call cash receipt journal. Example ng transaction natin, Entity A bills, revenue of 100,000 for rent income. So, ang entry natin, debit accounts receivable 100,000, credit rent or lease income 100,000. May registry ba? Wala pa. Hindi pa kasi tayo nakakapag-collect. Yeah. So, another transaction, Entity A collects 100,000 from the billed revenue and remits the collection to BTR. So, anong unang entry? Debit cash collecting officer, 100,000, credit accounts receivable. It is to record, okay, the collection of billed income. And then, sabi nga natin, when you collect, you remit. So, next nating entry. So, laging dalawa In every collection, dalawa ang entry. Automatic yon. Hindi ko na sasabihin na i-remit. Automatic yon. We have cash treasury agency deposit regular, credit cash collecting officer. Sabihin na natin cash collecting officer na lang yung CO. 100,000. Okay. So, yun yung para sa collection. Marami pa namang ibang klase ng collection. Ito, sample lang to. Di-discuss natin yan sa mga susunod na chapter. Also, other receipts. Ano ba yung mga receipts na natatanggap ng government sa susunod na chapter? Ito, overview lang naman. Ano yung ba yung mga idinidiscuss or ano ba yung mga transaction na meron or basic transaction ang government? Another basic transaction is the reversion of unused NCA. Remember kanina, magkano ba yung NCA? Kunyari, ito yung T account. Sorry, hindi naka-black. Okay lang yan. Puti lang kasi yung nalagay ko. So, kunyari, ito yung T account or the General Ledger of Cash MDS Regular. Naka-receive ka 200, nagbayad ka for payroll, 25,000, and nagbayad ka another 5,000 para sa mga withholdings. Ma'am, nasan po yung 10,000 para sa BIR? Hindi naman MDS check yung ginamit mo, TRA. So, ibang account yun. So, magkano yung unused? 170,000. It is one of the unique adjustment. Ang tawag po dito, another adjustment. Adjustment or adjusting entry sa government. Reversion of unused NCA. So, ano yung i-update mong record? Run ka. Entry. Parang ni-reverse mo lang kanina nung naka-receive ka ng NCA. Nung naka-receive ka, cash MDS regular, credit subsidy. Ngayon, since ibabalik mo na, debit subsidy from national government, credit cash MDS regular. It is the recognized reversion of unused NCA. So, summarize, ito po yung mga basic recordings natin. So, pag appropriation, rapal, pag-allotment, pero walang journal entry, pag-allotment, rapal, and then appropriate, RAOD, kasi pwedeng PS, MOOE, CO, or FE. Journal entry, wala. Incurrence of obligation, ORS. Each obligation, kanya-kanyang ORS, and then update mo yung specific RAOD niya. And then, wala pang journal entry. Next, naka-receive ka ng NCA. Anong registry? Run ka. Debit, cash, MDS, regular, credit, subsidy from national government. Paano naman pag disbursement? Siyempre, i-update mo yung yung ORS, and then we have RAOD. So, debit, pwedeng ganito, debit expense or asset, credit, payable. Depende kung ano yung disbursement na yun. Pwede na magbayad ka ng payable mo, debit, payable, credit, cash, MDS, regular. Or pwede rin dito, debit, okay, expenses, credit, cash, MDS, regular. Next natin is the TRA. Siyempre, update mo yung ORS kasi magbabayad ka na dun sa, kunyari, ORS kanina ng dun sa PS. Magkano ba yung total? We have 50,000. 50,000, nagbayad ka ng 25 para dun sa binayad mo sa tao, nagbayad ka ng remittance 5, so meron pang natitira na 10. O, tax remittance, i-deduct mo si ORS at saka update mo rin si RAOD. So, debit, cash TRA, upon receipt of TRA, credit subsidy from national government, pag magbabayad ka na due to BIR, credit cash TRA. Sa billing and collection naman, so we have RROR. And also, syempre, update mo rin yung cash receipt, ano ba yung RC? Sa next naman natin is sa billing, collection, and remittances. So, update mo yung RROR, RCD, and CRREG. So, ang mga journal entry dyan, siyempre, pwedeng kung nagbayad ng receivable, debit, cash collecting officer, okay, credit, debit accounts receivable, credit, sorry, may mali dito sa ginawa ng author. Debit accounts receivable, credit income. Okay, income to, income, not cash collecting officer. Debit accounts receivable, credit income. Siyempre, nag-collect ka ng receivable, debit cash collecting officer, credit accounts receivable. And then, iniremit mo. Debit, cash, treasury, agency, deposit, regular, credit, cash, collecting officer. And then, reversion of unused NCA. Ano yung registry ni update? Run ka. Kasi nga, NCA. So, i-reverse mo lang rin yung kaninang entry mo sa pag-receive ng NCA. Dito, subsidy from national government, credit, cash, MDS, regular. So, yun yung mga basic recordings ng government. Ma'am, yung mga account titles po ba na nasa RCA, madali siyang ma-identify kung anong ano po yung nature ng account? Yes, because in NCA, in RCA, ito yung ginagamit nating coding system ng revised chart of account. So, meron tayong 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 codes for RCA. So, yung first code is referring to account group. Sunod, yung second and third codes is about the major account group, sub-major account, general ledger account, and general ledger contra account. So, itong account group, pag 1 yan, ang nature niya, asset. Pag 2 ang simula niyan, liability. Pag 3, equity. Pag 4, income. Pag 5, expenses. Example natin, the account title is cash collecting officer. Ang account group niya, asset siya. Ano major account group ng cash collecting officer? Cash and cash equivalent. Sub-major account group niya is cash on hand. So, ano yung general ledger account? Cash collecting officer. 0 kasi no, it is not a contra account asset. Ay, tama. It is not a contra account asset. Yan. So, yan yung para sa RCA. Next, next natin is the government accounting system or cycle of ang next natin is a government accounting cycle. Paano ba yung government accounting cycle? Nagsisimula siya sa appropriation, yung enactment ng budget. Sunod, bibigyan ka ni DBM ng allotment. Pag may allotment ka na, pwede ka nang mag-incur ng obligation. Yan. Pag may obligation ka na, syempre nag-incur ka na ng obligation, magdi-deliver na ng service, magre-render na ng services, magdi-deliver na ng supplies or goods, magbabayad ka na. So, sunod natin, disbursement authority. Pwedeng NCA, NTA, CDC, at saka NCAA. And then, pag may pera ka na, since ito yung disbursement authority, naka-receive ka na, pwede ka na magbayad. Disbursement na. Sunod, syempre, billing and collection and remittances. Ito, guys, hindi naman po yan sunod-sunod na nangyayari. Okay? Hindi yan sunod-sunod kasi pwedeng from time to time may collection, from time to time may disbursement. But ang minimin lang dito, these are the transactions na meron sa government accounting cycle. If matapos ang isang period, okay, nakapag-record ka na ng disbursement, billing, and collection and remittances, syempre, ang end product naman is the unadjusted trial balance na galing sa general ledger mo. So, at the end of the period, magkakaroon ng adjusting entries for mga adjusting journal, mga iba't ibang klaseng adjusting journal entries. Then, prepare na ng pre-closing trial balance or ang tinatawag natin dyan sa private is what we call adjusted trial balance. Dito, pre-closing trial balance. And then, closing entries. And then, gawa na ng post-closing trial balance. And now, you can now prepare financial statements. So, ang financial statement natin dito sa government is meron tayong 6. Not 5, but 6. Ano ba yung mga adjusting entries na meron sa government? So, we have yung normal, accrued. So, adjust ka ng mga accruals and then deferrals. And then, the unused NCA, yung kanina natin diniscuss, reversion of unused NCA. Petty cash fund. Kung ano yung doon sa commercial, same dito. Impressed cash system. Same po dito. Petty cash fund. Para for replenishment. All unreplenished expenses or all unreplenished expenses in the petty cash fund should be adjusted at the end of the period. And then, unreleased commercial checks, meaning ibabalik mo ito. Ito yung mga mga adjusting entries pagdating sa bank bank reconciliation. Pag meron ka nakitang unreleased commercial checks, adjust mo. Next is allowance. Recording of allowance and accumulated impairment losses of asset accounts. Write down of inventories as to lower of fair value. Basta yung ganun. Write down of inventories. Next is correction and reclassification entries. Meron kang namaling entry nung last year or during the year. So, magkakaroon ka ng adjusting entry this year. So, correction of entries. Next is adjustment of reversal of impairment losses. Kung nag-record ka ng impairment loss, tapos ngayon meron ka naman nakitang parang gumanda naman. Okay? Gumanda tumaas uli or nag-appraise uli yung value nung isang asset. Magkakaroon na ng reversal of impairment losses. Also, syempre, yung hindi mawawala, depreciation expense, kasi nga, cost method ang ating government dito. And then, exchange differences on foreign currency or forex and other adjustment. So, for this chapter, that ends our chapter. So, yan yung sinasabi nating government accounting process from the appropriation up to FS presentation. Hindi natin diniscuss individually or thoroughly yung mga process na yun kasi meron kanya-kanyang chapters yon. We are looking forward na sa mga susunod na chapter is mat-discuss natin isa-isa ano ba yung process ng collection, ano ba yung process ng disbursement, ano ba yung process ng paggawa ng FS or financial statement. Thank you for watching and please like and subscribe. Bye!